Security Rec Center. The second Tuesday of every month.
I'm going to put it in calendar. Tomorrow night is my daughter's last volleyball tournament, and I'm probably not going to make it. I'm going to be honest.
It's fine. I got one that can't make because his daughter's got her birthday.
Oh, there you go.
When the ante goes up, right?
All I know is that we can take your direction. They charge you 15%.
You get money back over here.
That adds quite a lot to the cost.
John, can you hear us?
You see that a lot.
All right. All right. I'd like to call the Monday, March 11th, 2024 council meeting to order at 6 p.m. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Roll call, all councilors are present. Councilor Morrill is joining us via Zoom this evening. I believe this evening Councilor Smith is going to do our invocation and inspirational thought.
Councilors, would you please join me in the attitude of prayer? We pray for our country at all times, that all citizens are safe, healthy, and happy. We pray for wisdom for all those who guide and govern. Help this government body in every situation to know and do the things that are right and just, with soundness of judgment in making vital decisions. We pray for the peacemakers, that the holy life-giving spirit may revolve in their hearts, and the barriers of fear, suspicion, and hatred may fall. This we pray to the Holy Father. Amen.
Everyone would please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 on the agenda this evening is the declaration of any conflict of interest. Do any members of the council have a conflict of interest to declare this evening? Okay. Item number 5 on the agenda is the public forum. Danielle, did you have anyone send anything in? Does anybody from the public wish to speak this evening? Okay. Items 6, 7, and 8, minutes, bid openings, awards, and appointments, and public hearings and possible action items are all null and void of any content, so we can move forward. So we are on to item number 9 on the agenda, reports by staff and committees. And we have the city manager's report.
Thank you very much. So on our riverfront power plants, the EPA is working out an RFP for a contractor to clean up the steam plant. On the diesel plant brownfields project, work is underway to inventory and consolidate hazardous petroleum products. Broadband initiative, there are absolutely no new updates, despite repeated attempts and the fact that it'll be 12 months in April that this was awarded to Charter Spectrum to bring last mile broadband into Caribou. Events and marketing, there will be an eclipse on April 8th, 2024. Caribou is in the path of totality. Eclipse glasses will be available at the Wellness Center and the Nylander Museum this week for $3. We also have Eclipse t-shirts available for purchase at the Wellness Center during their normal business hours, and all proceeds will benefit community events. So anyone who is going to watch the eclipse, make sure that you have something that's safe for direct solar viewing. So these are special glasses here. The land bank, Councilor Bradley has information to present about moving forward with the land bank initiative, and this will be on the March 25th City Council meeting agenda. Chapter 13 rewrite. The planning board worked on the land use table and the zoning map for riverfront uses at their March 7th work session. The Federal American Rescue Plan Act, staff is working on 2 applications for county ARPA funds. Blight cleanup, a big thank you to Soderberg Construction. The property at 273 Sweden Street has been cleaned up and hauled to the landfill. Caribou Development Committee met on March 5th. The next meeting is March 20th, and good things are happening in that committee. The Riverfront Master Plan, staff has received a partial notice to proceed for NEPA review, but not for the Riverfront Master Plan. Facade Improvement Program, the spring facade improvement grant period for the downtown TIF district is now open with a March 15th application deadline. The Caribou Economic Growth Council, their next meeting is March 28th. Business outreach, multiple conversations with business owners after the newsletters were mailed on March the 1st. Fire station renovations. We found out on Friday night that our fiscal year 2024 CDS request for fire station safety renovations was approved. So we'll be able to move forward with that, and I hope it goes faster than the ones we had for fiscal year 2023. Police station, the police station committee met on March 1st, and staff has been working on some homework. Trailer park closure, we're gearing up to clear out the poles and brush in 2024. The community garden and Nurture by Nature will be back. So wait for updates about that also. The airport wildlife hazard site visit report has been received in draft form with some recommendations to keep wildlife from interfering with aviation activities at the airport. The comp plan update, NMDC and our own staff are working on various sections. LD 2003 implementation, the planning board has received a document for the review from NMDC. The DOT Village Partnership, the kickoff meeting is held Friday, March 1st. Aroostook Waste Solutions voted to work with member communities in the blight fight by accepting a limited amount of construction and demolition debris at no charge. Cary Medical Center, it's 2024, is the 100th anniversary of Jefferson Cary's vision for Caribou Community Hospital, and that will be celebrated all year long. Other updates, I'm going to say it one more time. Thank you to Soderberg Construction for the cleanup at 273 Sweden Street. Administrative approvals, Danielle was working on one of those today for the American Legion, I think, right? Yeah. Any questions from anyone?
Just a small question.
Okay.
Do we know how much the t-shirts are being sold for at the rec?
But they're more expensive than the ones at Walmart, because I did see that they had some at Walmart, but they're still affordable, and they are screen printed right here in Caribou by County Quick Print.
Oh, the close t-shirts.
Yes, the t-shirts, yes.
Are they there yet, Gary? No. County Quick Print was Center Brands. Maybe they don't have them there
I
yet.
don't believe they're there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so sometime this week will happen.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Morrow, did you have a question or comment?
I have a question regarding the land bank initiative. Do you please assume going to be presented. She's going to be presented, the individual counselors prior to this meeting. That way we don't have any big surprise or something that we can research on our own prior to, this meeting on March 25th.
That sounds reasonable to me. Councillor Bagley, would you be able to provide information prior to the meeting?
Sure.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
On the DOT bill, village partnership has the same program.
Same thing with the work partnership.
I'm aware of that, so no question.
Do we know when the next meeting is scheduled for that?
Nope, they've got some work to do and then they'll come back to us for an update.
Did you? Anybody else have questions?
Just one, have we received an update on a cost estimate for the police station design that we were presented last month?
Well, we have to do some homework for that. So we have, one of the things they wanted to look at was, so when the Caribou Community School was built, there were other schools being built in the state, and they're trying to really determine what that factor is for building in Aroostook County compared to some of these other places. I need to look at different things about the Build America, Buy America program that's part of the CDS request and possibly USDA. If we went to different financing, would we still have to go by those guidelines, because that drives the cost up? So I've got to gather up some information.
So the architect has asked us for some information.
Some information. I think there were some things on Mike's list too, like we all have homework, I guess, is what I characterize it as.
Okay.
They're working on some things too after asking us some questions. Like, for example, they're reaching out to Kevin Bowman, who was the contractor on the school, to have a conversation with him. And, yeah. So we're all doing homework right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Item number 10, under new business ordinances and resolutions, 10A is a discussion of the payment options for our special 6-month County of Aroostook budget. And that's on page 4 of your packet. Penny, would you please just give everyone some background on this?
Sure. The County of Aroostook has transitioned to a July to June fiscal year from a calendar year. Therefore, in 2024, all municipalities in Aroostook County will receive 2 tax bills. The first, of which you have a copy in your packet, represents the Caribou portion of their approved budget for January 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2024. The second, which the municipality will receive prior to setting the 2024 municipal tax rate, will cover the period from July 1 to 2024 to June 30th, 2025. County tax bills are due annually on September 1st. The 12-month tax bill for the period July 1 to June 30th, 2025 will be due in full on September 1, 2024, and we do not currently know the amount. The 6-month tax bill for the period January 1 to June 30th, 2024 is for $415,845 is also due on September 1, 2024, but the county is offering payment options. The city has the option to pay this bill in installments of 1, 2, or 3 years, but we must communicate this choice to avoid 8.5% interest on the amount unpaid on November 1st, 2024. The county would like an answer from municipalities by April 1. Following this memo, you will find the 4-page communication from the County of Aroostook, a history of the Aroostook County tax bill invoices, and a summary of the appropriations for Aroostook County.
Thank you, Penny.
So I would take any question. Oh, John's got a question.
Councillor Morrow?
I've often wondered about this tax bill. explain to us what exactly we're paying for? I mean, it seems to me that when we get this bill every year, it's an exorbitant amount of money. And then we don't have much input into correcting or to discussing. And I'm just wondering, prior to us making any decision how we're going to pay this, but we're going to have to pay it. But if somebody from county government, whether it's Paul Michael or whoever our representatives are going to come in and just sit down and give us a clear analysis on what we're paying for, and just overall, especially for the public. I mean, this is one of those bills where you don't have much input into say, talking about it, except to say that here's your bill, here's your sign, hey, so I'm just wondering if that's a possible option.
So what is the council thinking about that? Do you want me to ask the county administrator if someone could come to a meeting and talk about the bill?
It might be nice for the community to be able to hear that as well. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Councillor Smith?
Couple things on this. I mean, okay, we have a special, it's not special, we're not paying double.
No, you're paying for 18 months.
We're paying 18 months at once, to clarify for everyone. And I think a lot of people want to know that question. Some people say, well, gee, we're paying, why are we paying twice? We're not.
We're not.
We're not. And the other thing is I think they've offered us a deal for 3 years with no interest, an option. I don't see why we shouldn't take that option. On a side note, I know it's been talked about at the committee level. I believe the city should be moving in the direction of going to a fiscal year, but that's for another opportunity, another question that requires a charter change. But with that said, I'll make a motion that we accept the 3-year option for the 6-month tax bill, interest-free for 3 years.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion? Bagley?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. Buffalo? Aye. Morrow? Smith? Terrio? Aye. Aye. Motion carries.
And to follow up on that question, on John's question, it would be, if we could have somebody come in here and speak to us, as far as the budget process, that would be acceptable with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Whether one is.
Okay. Item 10B is the discussion of the 2024 municipal budget, and that starts on page 12 of your packets. Okay, Penny, again, if you want to give us a little background here, that would be great.
Sorry, all the important pages are all the backs of pages. Tear all of them off because it's a fat packet and we're all in the back. So, as we have discussed since the beginning of the year, the budget process is divided into 3 processes: the expense budget, capital budget, and income budget. So, timing of budget presentation, we're working towards the 3rd Monday in March, which the City Council will, on or before, the City Council will hold a public hearing and vote on the city's final detailed expense budget for the ensuing year. So what you have is, we've had presentations from departments on the budget. You have in your packet expense budget, the capital expense budget. And then I also have the breakdown from the different departments, what their initial requests were, what the capital committee came back with for recommendations. I have the income budget. It's easier to actually pass all of this at the same time because we can't load everything, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but I don't think that they can load everything into Trio until the expense and revenue is all set, and then it gets uploaded in there so that when you get your monthly financials, you'll be comparing it to a budget instead of the budget not being in there for the reports.
Especially if you're going through that before, until it's passed, we don't get.
Correct. You can see what you have spent if you don't have that compared to it. Well, to a 12-month budget. So,
So we're going to, so we're moving forward tonight on the expense budget. We're going to talk
we're
about,
going to talk about it. Your public hearing isn't until next week. So we're having 3 meetings so that we can have our public hearing and a vote if the council's ready next,
on the 25th.
well, on the 18th is when we're meeting next Monday, which is the 18th for the public hearing.
So on the capital budget is still in the works. When will we see the full capital budget?
Well, I have it in here. It's like department. It's there.
I see this year's
recommendations,
request,
yeah.
but I don't see the full budget with the history and the projections going forward.
So, capital is put in account number, let's see here. What is it? 85.
Yep.
Thank God that Carl's here. And so I can't tell you that for sure what we've had every year has gone into the same line, because when I was trying to find lines to put this in, there's multiple lines for the same thing. So I'm hoping, since I'm doing this now in Trio, that going forward it will all be in the same account line. But some of the others are kind of here and there, which what I tried to do is I tried to take out a lot of the lines that have zeros in there, but I still keep finding ones that I still have in here. But if they have a value for 21 or 22, I tried to leave them in there so you could see that history. But I think going forward, because I've been now trying to do the budget process in Trio, that you're going to see better history, particularly with capital, because these things are in there, and that's why for Department 85, you'll see that the columns, you have an extra column, which is 2024 committee. So there's an initial request column and then a committee request.
And does Trio allow you to do the 5-year projection that's required on the capital budget, or would you have to do that manually?
No, we would have to do that manually.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It doesn't have an option for that in here.
So we're going to see that next week, did you say?
I can have departments work on it.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking what the timeline is. I'm not saying do it next week. I'm saying when might we see the complete budget?
So what you're looking for that you don't have here is a 5-year projection. Is that
In the history, right?
I think what becomes difficult with that is that because different projects come up that they need to set aside capital for here and there, I think that's why it's hard to sometimes do those projections. It's something.
I mean, some of them have notes, have notes in the side, like when they're trying to say.
Okay, whatever we have. I understand what you're trying to do here. There are pieces and parts. The history of the capital, or the 3-year prior, is in one of your spreadsheets, right? But everything is basically in one line. So I see what the problem that you have to decompose all of that, right? And Trio doesn't give that to you.
Not now, but again, once I started working on this, I did communicate with them that it might be helpful to be able to do an average of actuals instead of looking at budgeted amounts.
I guess the point is those projections are important because we have to understand what the context is of this year's investment, how it fits in, over the next 5-year strategy. So, unless we have that information, it's hard to judge, this year's request. So that context is really important, I think.
Okay, I can work on that.
So our next meeting, March 18th, which is obviously a special meeting. So we're just going to discuss budget and public hearing.
Right, so I think we're trying to do most of the discussion, as much of the discussion as we can to clear up any questions or concerns that people have so that we can move into that public hearing and kind of have a clear.
Require vote after we can
Right.
on
whatever you feel comfortable working on at the time. I mean,
If we can, then that would be ideal.
yeah, that's the ideal thing, but it's gonna be what your comfort level is with those things.
So this evening, we're going to discuss and
Right, and if you have,
offer up suggestions
Yep.
for reductions or
This is your opportunity, yep, to discuss or ask questions that you might have.
is
So
it to do it like as a workshop?
so you can kind of just, if you have a question about something you see, just,
It'll just be kind of open
right.
discussion, okay.
we plan to have a department head meeting on Wednesday to be able to work through, so if you give me some direction tonight, then that gives me a chance tomorrow to work on some things, get things to staff or to the council. If you have, specific questions that maybe you want answered before we work on things. And then Wednesday we'll have that workshop. We'll have a packet that goes back out for next Monday's meeting.
So as far as the direction goes, how do you want to run that, Mayor? Are we going to take a vote on things? Are we going to try to do things by unanimous consent, or?
So right now, it's the opportunity for you to ask questions if you see something on here that jumps out at you, so that way Penny can go back. She's got, like she said, a department head meeting. So if there's any last tweaks that anyone wants to recommend or suggest before we come to that special workshop meeting next week,
I got it.
we have that done.
Perfect. Thanks.
Councilor Wall, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. I see as part of the capital expenditures budget is that there's some things related to the fire department building. And I'm wondering if that's going to be going away, whether it's the congressional dedicated funds deal that we've done work here, is something that will be taken care of with that appropriation.
I believe a portion of something will be covered if we get the funding, correct, Penny?
Right, and that was taken out between the initial capital request, and then if you look over at the committee recommended capital requests, it's taken out of there. The stretchers and the multimedia recorder are still in here, although we are applying for a grant that will help offset those, but we don't know yet if we're successful, but we would know by the time you set the tax rate.
Was that page 93?
I was actually looking at page 16, which is the committee recommended capital requests, which was from the last meeting that the capital committee had on February 26th.
Other questions? Councilor Bagley, did you have a question?
Just ready to get started whenever you are.
Get started on what?
Walking through the budget lines.
I don't know that we were going to walk through line by line unless that's something someone's interested in. I think the idea was to go through if you've already had a chance to look at the budget and see if there are things that you have questions about.
I do.
Okay.
So I get started.
Yeah, fire away.
I didn't want to speak out of turn. So on general government line, the salaries line,
If you could just reference where you're looking, that would be helpful for everybody.
yeah, it's account 1001.
Is that on page
24. It's on page 20.
That's going to be interesting. Okay. Pardon me?
24.
Yeah, 24. It's referenced to 2% COLA, and I computed that up to be like closer to 510 than 523, so you might want to look at that. Under elections, page 25, it references 3 elections in 2024, so we usually have 2, right?
Yeah, there was a primary election in this year.
So it's nearly 100% increase, and I would think that that would be closer to a 50% increase. I don't know where that number came from. It just popped up at me.
Number, which is $3,000.
Yeah, well, I figured there was something in there, but I didn't know. So, and then miscellaneous expenses at 8,000. That was just the budget number from last year. We actually spent like 4,800, so just want to make sure that that's still a good number, the 8,000. The city and state retirement doesn't seem to add up. Can you tell me what percentage the city is matching on retirement?
So, people that would be paid in general government are non-union. Non-union is the 3.5%.
3.5. Okay.
Not everyone takes it, but we would still need to budget for, like, someone can change their mind, they would still be entitled to be able to take it.
So when you budget, do you budget like worst case, like everybody takes it?
I believe so, right, Carl? Yeah.
I would hope. Okay. I think that's all I had for general government.
John has his hand up.
John? Councilor Morrow?
Comment, I think that overall, our municipal budget looks good. I mean, for all of the reasons, I think the biggest part of the budget is, of course, wages and benefits, which is what is affecting everybody today. I think that's our biggest problem, okay? But that's beyond our control. See, when you're looking at an overall 3% overall increase, and most of that related to wages and benefits. I think that the department heads have done a good job of holding the line. Everybody's kind of doing their thing, understanding where we're at. Of course, we'll get one thing, so we'll wait for another one. So I have to say, I think overall, we're running our city pretty lean, and pretty mean. I think that overall, we sit pretty good. And the factors are beyond our control that affect how we expect things sometimes. So I just want to make that comment. I think that the department head has done a good job. In 3 years after this, they all understand this is not a frivolous budget. There's no frivolous things in here. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Councilor Terrio?
Yeah, one thing in particular, Penny, that $102,000 for a new position, is that in this expense now? And you want to take it out?
Well, that's going to be in salary, part of that is in insurance, health insurance, part of it is in retirement.
Okay, but is it in here?
It is in there. It's already out there.
Because on your memos, you had it, you thought, that you didn't think that we should do this year, and I vehemently disagree with you. We need to do this, and you can't keep kicking the can down the street. You've got to do this, even if it takes a while to find somebody, take your time and everything, but you need to have help, and I think that should stay in there. Do not take that money out. Are you advertising it at all?
No, because the budget hasn't.
Oh, that's right.
That was a good question, Joe, because I would have the same question.
Yeah.
But
So it's spread out.
so what we're looking at now
Is including that. Okay. And
Fact-
that stays, yeah, okay.
I just want to go back to the
Yeah, go ahead.
and John will pointed out, we have no control over, it can make a difference of $20,000 or $30,000
mean, I don't know. We have, right.
And everybody has a different situation. We don't know that when we hire them. We don't have any control over that.
But we typically budget for it.
But
Right,
for it,
right,
and
right.
then
Kind of
some
works
people take it, or
case,
they can buy another option or whatever. So that can make a big factor in any department.
Agreed.
That's all I'm going to talk about the expense budget.
I have just a couple of questions. Absolutely. So when it comes to, I know that we talked about that Placer AI software subscription, which was $10,000, but when I look at the $16,000 amount, looking at.
So we've moved on to department.
Oh, I'm in the wrong department. Okay, let me go backwards then. Okay. I do have some questions in this department too. So when I'm looking at the vehicle repair, tires and gas, this is a small amount, so it's not a big thing, but I just have a question about it. So when I look back, historically, if you add all those numbers together, which they are separated out, and I get that, they just all fall under $1,500 a piece, but they're asking for more than double that combined. So I wonder, is there a way to combine those things into one category and just ask for one amount? If that makes any sense to you at all.
Are you talking about the vehicle repair, tires, and gas?
Yeah, because if you add all three of those together for actual costs, we're at like $1,480, $1,395, $1,300, but we're asking for $3,200 in 2023 and $3,000. That's more than double the amount that we've used any of those years. So I'm just wondering if that's something that we can combine and look at that, because I just, that's not a lot of money, that's a little bit. And then I just wanted to know what was the miscellaneous expense with $8,000? What does that actually go towards?
Things that don't kind of fit anywhere else. Like for myself, I find what I code out of miscellaneous is, when we send flowers to the funeral home,
Yeah.
things like that, which is not the whole amount, but just things that don't really fit somewhere else. If I would have known you were going to give me this question, I could actually pull it up. And I can send that to you, kind of what that is. That's the one that I guess I can remember that I seem to code a lot is when we have to do things like that. Things come up. They're usually small expenses that would come up. So add up over the course of 12 months.
Gotcha. Okay, so I see that. And it doesn't look like we normally spend quite that much, but maybe several years ago we did spend quite a bit back in 2021. So, were they asking for an increase for a specific reason, or just because? Do you know?
I guess I just looked at kind of the history and
It's not a lot of money. I'm not trying to nickel and dime. This is not a big deal. But okay, one other question on this one, and I'll let you go. And this is something that I kind of saw across all of the budgets, was that a lot of people were asking for training and travel money, but they aren't using it. And you did say something about wanting to do some training, did you not? So was that maybe
correct? I mean, there's different ones in different departments, and there are some years that you just can't go. Like I can't go to a training if I'm going to be away on a council meeting. So I don't pick when the trainings are, and last year, it's been also very difficult picking up code enforcement after Ken retired. So I also can't go when we have a riverfront meeting or a planning board meeting. Last year I also got called for jury duty, and I couldn't go to a training because I had to go testify against John Barreto. Like it's just one thing. There's stuff that seems to come up, all the time, and I hope that that's not the case going forward. But
So that's I can't do what I did last travel and the meals and stuff. That all goes with the training.
correct,
Okay.
because they don't offer a lot of training in Northern Maine.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I mean, we do a lot on Zoom. That's one thing that we are able to do now, but, some of our certifications, they want to look at a live person and make sure that you are there and paying attention, especially when it comes to like legal updates and things. They want to make sure that everybody's kind of getting all the same information. There are also very good networking opportunities. Sometimes around a lunch table, you can find someone. We all in our different professions seem to have the same problems, just on different scales. And I found that I went to one training last year, which was it was a manager training. It was in Orono, and I sat at a table, and it was a lot of younger professionals, and it was really interesting to hear different points of view, like why they got into local government. Some of them, their manager sent them because they're kind of on a manager track in their jobs. So it was very interesting to see like what appeals to them for public sector, what doesn't, what they find their challenges are. Of course, down there, a lot of some of them were from Southern Maine, and it's they can't afford to live in the town they work in. Like that was something that I found that was very interesting. And you don't get that if you're on Zoom, because every time if you're on a Zoom training, they're like, okay, everybody, you need to come back in 10 minutes. Everyone turns off their cameras, they run to the bathroom, they make a couple calls, they get a snack. It's not the same. Like if you're all there together, and you learn a lot from those just table discussions. And a lot of times when you go out of town, there's a camaraderie. You go to dinner together, and you have a bigger chance to kind of talk about. I mean, because your phone, somebody's sending you a text, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe what just happened in my town. And so that starts a conversation about things. And sometimes you go to the trainings, and they can give you a real lift too. Like, and sometimes you're depressed, and but a lot of times you go to them, and you're glad that you have the problems you have. I guess I would say there's things going on in other towns that you can come back and say, at least that isn't going on in my town. Danielle's been working on going through the New England Municipal Clerks Institute. I know that Carl and his staff have to do training to be certified municipal treasurers, certified municipal tax collectors. With assessing, we have to have a minimum number of hours every single year. I didn't think I was going to stay certified last year. With code enforcement, you have a little bit longer period of time. So, we like to think that we're going to take so many credit hours a year, but sometimes it ends up being like all of the last year. And that's sometimes how that happens.
Completely understand that. Thank you very much for the explanation. Any other questions?
Coming back to the salary for the new full-time person, what salary number did you
So
use?
I put
I got
in,
the 102,
yeah,
but what was the salary?
I put in 80,000.
Okay, I guess 75.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Other questions? No further questions? So does everybody feel at this point that they have enough information to move forward with our next meeting pertaining to the budget?
Definitely not. So,
I just asked if you had further questions. Do you have some further
I
questions
do have
then?
further questions. So here's my question. Is this kind of input useful to you?
Yes, it is.
The numbers and whatever the questions are. Because I have a lot of them, and I don't want to be here till, midnight. So
I appreciate that.
if you if you want, I can send them to the group for consideration, in writing. Would that work, or would you rather step through all of these?
That's fine by me,
Well,
however
let's
you
step
would
through
like
some
to.
of them, and when we're tired, we can quit, and I can send you the rest. However you want to do it.
That maybe you have certain ones that really stand out to you that you'd like to discuss with the group.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yes, I do.
So I know Councilor Lovewell had a question in Department 11. Does anyone else have questions in Department 11?
Well, I did.
Okay. So I don't know if you want to talk about those. I guess I don't know.
I just had a question about it pertains to the category containing the Placer AI software subscription. So I guess that's in the same, I don't know if they're putting that in the same subscriptions as under professional dues anyhow. It looks like they had 825 and 1255 prior to that. I'm just wondering why there's an extra several $1,000s, but they're requesting.
So we also have a subscription that we received a resiliency grant to have Text My Gov. Like if you go to our website, there's like a little widget that pops up that people can text questions. So I still have to pay the second year of that one. I don't know that we're going to continue it. We don't have that many people. It's always at the same time. It's whenever we have something like the leaf collection in the fall and the brush collection in the spring. Well, then we get all kinds of like texts, and it's actually a very easy software to use. People text in. I can go right to my email and it texts them back, and I can give them the dates of something, when something happens. I can send them a link to something on our website. It makes it very easy to answer their questions, but what we're finding is people just aren't using it. It was meant to be kind of a tool. Again, originally we had it through the resiliency grant, so that if we had things we needed to get out to people in a hurry because like a road was closed, or we needed to keep people out of an area, that we would be able to go on and send it to anyone who signed up. The problem is nobody was signing up. I guess everyone just gets their information from Facebook. Although we put the things about brush cleanup and leaf cleanup online, on Facebook, and they don't seem to find that. But it's been a good tool. I mean, when people email, when they text, it's very easy for me to get back to them. But it just didn't catch on like we had hoped it would catch on. So I have that. I guess we're also just exploring different possibilities for things that we can use for economic development tools. There is a lot of different software. I've heard pitches from, different companies. InCity is one of them that have different tools. Comoyne Associates. They might also have site selection tools, business information and data tools available to us. And if we have a budget for those kind of things, the development committee can look at those and say, okay, in the direction that we're heading with the different projects, do we have tools that we should be putting in the toolbox?
Can I follow up with that? One other question on the storm blight removal, 80,000, I think it was 80,000?
I think the 85 adds in, so we have land bank seed, 20,000, storm and blight removal, 65, for a total of 80.
Oh, 65, right. So we didn't spend nearly 65. So what is the plan this coming year? We're going to be able to spend it?
I don't know if we will or not. I mean, again, so this is an enterprise account. If we don't spend it, it just goes, we still have
That's
it.
a curiosity question.
Yes,
That's all that is.
I mean, this year, when we found out the Supreme Court decision from Hennepin County about tax acquired property. So that kind of stopped us from doing a lot with blight at that point. And that was in our good weather. So we didn't get a lot done. And I don't know that we're completely certain exactly where to go with some of this. It's something, it's just more homework for staff. There was actually a question on our manager listserv this morning about, because again, managers try to help each other, so we're not all reinventing the wheel, about, what towns are trying to do to figure out just how far they can go with things. But until I think I don't know if it came up at this meeting, the planning board meeting, the Riverfront meeting, or the development committee meeting, but someone said that some community's going to have to be the first one to try and see what happens. And I don't know that I want it to be us that, try something.
Well, I was pleased to see the big number, and I was just curious, are we going to be able to do that this year? So.
That just remains to be seen, We don't know July 1st is going to come, and that's when the judge has given Mr. Barretto time to clean up his property. Of course, we don't own the property on Water Street. We know that even to have an engineer tell us how to clean up that site would be very costly, and that doesn't even include cleaning it up. That's just for someone to give us a blueprint for cleaning it up. And that's, staff hears about that property for sure too.
And I think that's one of our top priorities as a council. I'm glad to see that number's there.
Yeah.
It's just for, relapse this, and you need to explain, I understand it, but the difference between why we have enterprise accounts and what the difference is between regular accounts, just for
Sure.
So
The general fund accounts, those are money you raise through taxation. And spending in those accounts will affect your mill rate. With the enterprise accounts like housing and FSS, those are grant funded. So the amount to run those programs come from the federal government. The snowmobile enterprise account comes from funding from the state. This Department 11 economic development, whether you spend it or not, we are capturing value in the TIF districts, and the income that's generated on that increment value is sheltered from our state valuation, state aid to education, our county tax bill. It's not factored into that valuation, and so we capture that money, and it's used to fund projects that have been approved through that process when the tax increment finance district was created, which in the case of the downtown district, it was, I think, 17 years ago. So we're more than halfway through that district, so that's for 30 years. Those tax revenues will be, we'll have those for economic development activities. Those are allowable expenses, credit enhancement agreements. There's other things you can actually do, like infrastructure sewer projects. It doesn't have to be in the downtown. It just has to be commercially driven. You can also, within the community, do trails. There's riverfront projects is something that was like a named item in that too. The different districts that we have, the downtown district, the RC2 district, the Hilltop district, and the Bouchard district, they all have different they call them qualified expenses, depending on the district.
Thank you very much for anyone else listening to clarifying that. That's all I have.
So if it's not spent, it has to go back into, it can't go into general fund. It has to go back into those reserved funds.
So if we have recommendations for reductions, do you want to hear the? I'm not sure how this is going to work because I may recommend a reduction, somebody else may disagree with it, or the whole council may disagree with it, and I don't want that to drive what you're doing. So maybe that's a question for the mayor. How are we going to handle the discussion about reductions?
Right.
If they're suggested.
So, you can, like we said, you can certainly suggest what you'd like, ask any questions you'd like at this time, or you can present them in email if you'd like, and we can all kind of hash that out. But at the next meeting, that's when we're going to ultimately vote on this.
So what Penny is going to need to know what to put in that package.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So that's why if you want to share those recommendations, or if you want to either email them or talk about them now, that's what we're here for tonight.
Seems like we need to vote on them. Right?
If you're trying to build consensus on something,
She's going to end up getting conflicting guidance from us, and she.
But I don't know that you'd want to vote on it until you have the public hearing, because next week you may have a lot of people from the public that hear the discussion tonight and say, okay, I know that you want to cut X, Y, Z, but here are the reasons why I think X, Y, Z should stay in the budget. But maybe
next week.
right. Okay. But maybe if you're looking for cuts, maybe element can be cut instead. Okay. We don't know what the public may come forward, so but if you
and then we'll do a final iteration for us to vote on, and it won't be next week.
well, I guess it depends. If you don't have a lot of things, you can make a motion that we change those few things.
Right in your time.
Right. But if you have, you know, if you're saying you need to cut 5% from every line that ends in 2, well, then that's going to take a little bit more time. I mean, not that you're going to do something, you know, that like that, but I'm just saying, like,
Okay.
if there's multiple lines that maybe we would, or especially if it was a percentage or something, you know, I think, you know, for a motion, we'd want to know, like, from this line, we're going to cut this amount or that amount.
That's much clearer now.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm good. So, again, we can take up as much time tonight going through some of these. I've got a lot of them.
As I mentioned, if you want to hit the high points, that would be
Okay.
great.
Can I ask about the municipal building? This is page 33, 1801. What is this? Is this a Lions building?
It's also this building.
It's more than one building. Okay, so under the CEM, there's all kinds of maintenance and type items for the Lions building. Are they carrying, is the CEM carrying the entire load on the Lions building?
What one was this, 18?
So that's account number 39. So
this is the Lions plus the municipal building.
yeah. So
Any other
then,
buildings?
I don't think so. Carl, do you know? I think it's just Lions building and this building.
So when we go to the CEM budget,
Right.
there's a lot of things about building supplies, sewer, electricity, all those types of things under that account as well.
Well, I see we have electricity, but that's probably the electricity that they use for the downstairs, like the emergency management is the basement.
It's metered separately.
Yeah,
All of that is metered separately.
I'm just gonna guess that it is. I mean, I don't know that for a fact. Building maintenance, I'm guessing that must be, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't venture to guess, but I can, look it up. As far as building supplies, I'm guessing that's the stuff that's used there. You know, if they need paper towels or toilet paper or something, or cleaning supplies. Building, I just don't know, like with building maintenance, if it's something that is more about the use of the building than the building. I mean, we make those distinctions like when we're talking about business personal property, and maybe we are here, like if it serves the business as a business instead of the building as a building. Or in this case, serves the department as a department and not the building as a building.
So we're paying a lot every year to maintain that Lions Club building. Is it being used for anything except the CEM?
So the upstairs have been used for ambulance billing, and there was, at one time, Region 5 EMS had an office in there, and the Veterans Group had an office in there too.
Right.
So some of the plan to work on the fire station also involves
Use that space.
taking some uses from that building and moving them to the Lions building, like especially the offices. So
Is that still the plan?
as far as I know, that's still a plan, but we just heard we were getting the money Friday. So, but when we originally were talking about it, it's to, and not to get too far in the weeds about this, but, you know, there's a lot of contaminants that come back from fire scenes, and when you're trying to have zones in their work area that, you know, like red that's highly contaminated, and orange that's not as contaminated, and green, which you would want that to be what is sleeping, eating, that is free from contamination. There needs to be some reworking of spaces there to make that environment more safe for the people that work there. So,
I just want to throw something there too. There's also an issue, as you were discussing earlier, because of COVID.
yes,
I want to bring that up
yep,
very clear, because if females working there now are one, or
yep,
more than one, I'm not sure. That was,
yep.
maybe we have to accommodate, but we need some general accommodations, but not permanent.
But to be compliant.
Compliant, but
That we,
for long term, we need to.
Second issue is too, when you start moving things around and having sleeping quarters, and the building needs to be sprinkled because it didn't have to be sprinkled when it was
I thought
built.
that killed the project, is that the whole thing about the expense of the sprinklers or whatever, because this can't be grandfathered now.
No, because once you start, I mean, mean, naturally, cost or not, being mandated or not, you want to have your employees working in an environment that is safe, particularly if someone is going to be sleeping. You know, when you wake up from asleep, you're disoriented, so we want to make sure that it's as safe as possible for anyone that is there. But that's why we have, you know, under the direction of the city council, have pursued grant funding to be able to do this project, which otherwise the city would not have been able to do. But we've been very fortunate through working with the county ARPA program and also benefiting from Senator Collins championing this project to get it into the appropriations bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great venue, so I wanted to make sure it was still a plan, because I hadn't heard anything about it for a while.
Well, that's because, you know, we applied for this like a year ago, and, you know, but now we can start, it's in the homework pile of projects to work on.
So one of the things I wanted to follow up with, actually, you put in one of your emails, is the budget on the library and the plan to transition a part-time person to full-time, and bump salaries or wages for all the people. I'll just say, you know, 107, I think it's a bit much. I think that I understand what's being done, and I appreciate it, and I support it, but I think that we might have some unintended consequences that you mentioned that I'm concerned about, but I think we could probably, that's an area that we would be able to reduce in a modest way, yet still achieving the library's goals. That's my opinion, anyway. So that was a big one for me.
So, that's on Department 25, so we're all set.
Sorry.
No, I'm just making sure that, I just want to make sure that I'm, yeah, no, 32, so.
So salaries and and all of that, well, I don't know,
We're on page 42.
right.
I was looking at that one right here. That's what he's talking about.
I don't know what the right number is, I would just, you know, recommend looking at it, see if you can get more modest increases.
Okay.
That doesn't raise so many flags elsewhere. So moving on to the fire department, there's lots of things in here that skip through down and things like, okay, page 46, new equipment, down at the bottom of the page. We have this new equipment line, asking now for 12,000. They only spent 9. But I'm wondering, shouldn't it be in the capital account?
I'm guessing if it's something, I mean, the funny thing about Caribou is we don't have like some guidelines about what are we saying is capital and what are we saying is like an expense purchase. And I almost think you and I have had this discussion before.
Probably.
It's not, you know, some towns do it by a dollar amount. So if you're buying a piece of equipment that's over this amount, or some of it is, okay, do we expect that equipment to last X amount of years? Then it would be capital as opposed to an expense. And we don't have a set policy on that. And that's something, you know, that the council might want to consider doing. I mean, we have set up reserve accounts for what we know will be big purchases. But, and we set up capital accounts for roads, which of course we hope will last, a long time also. But we don't have a bar that says, okay, if it's under this dollar amount, then it's an expense. If it's over that dollar, it's capital. If it's something that has a like a computer, like we still keep putting computers in capital, but literally this computer is less than 3 years old. It was, I don't know, $800 or something. But literally it goes black. Like every meeting, when we get through a meeting and it doesn't completely give me the black screen of doom, like I'm grateful. And I'm like, oh, made it through another meeting. I don't always.
Right. I mean, in my opinion, that is a capital expense. You're capitalizing your computer, whatever, your computer equipment. So to me, it's anything that's operations and maintenance would be an expense. Anything that's new, new equipment, replacement equipment, as opposed to maintenance would be capital. But that's for another day. I
Yeah,
guess.
and are we using
But I saw that
IRS
kind of
rules?
things throughout the budgets.
Yes,
So
and there's no hard and fast rule, but it's
Okay.
something that if the council wants to adopt a policy and work on a policy, it's something that could be, but we don't have a hard and fast rule for that. But I can get from the fire chief what he anticipates having in new equipment, what kind of expenses are typically in new equipment, and I can find that out.
It'd been great if we could ask him that when he was here to present.
Yeah.
Hold my question. Well, I just, you send us what purchased last year, that's all. That would answer the question. I mean, what 2023 actual was.
Yep.
Boom. This is what we consider new equipment, and then we can look at it from there.
So the fire department was one of those budgets where you saw a lot of 2024 requests that simply matched the 2023 budget, and a lot of times they were way out of alignment with what was spent. And so, and I think Chief LaJoy, when he was here, I actually pointed that out to him and suggested, take another look, maybe. There may be a good reason for it, and that's fine, but those are the things that stand out to me.
So do you have some lines in particular you want me to have him take a look at before the meeting that we have on Wednesday? You can send me an
Send it to me,
email.
I'm gonna do all of this and I'll send it to you.
Yeah. So I'll make a note that you're sending an email on that.
So the fire department, I had a few things on that. It seemed like, I'm sorry, the police department. We're on page 52 now. And it seemed like the salary increases this year were, way above a 2% COLA. I was trying to unravel why so much more than what was.
Well, they're part of the
budgeted.
bargaining unit, and I don't have their contract in front of me to tell you.
I suspected it was something like
Yeah,
that.
and of course, this is, we're budgeting, I believe, like it would be fully staffed. So,
Yes, it should, yeah.
because we are optimists at the end of the day.
There's a line here on a car allowance, and I was confused by that. What is a car allowance? Who's it for? And the $6,300 now request?
So, this would be, so we have some departments that they have like, for example, you see Public Works, their, Public Works Director and the Assistant Director both have pickups. You see the side of them say Caribou Public Works. The Fire Chief has a vehicle that's paid for by the city. It says Caribou Fire Department. Our Police Chief does not drive a cruiser or a car that says Caribou Fire Department. Caribou Police Department. I actually think I remember hearing at one point, and again, I didn't know this question was coming up, so I haven't fact checked this, but I remember hearing at one time, if you're in a cruiser, you have to be carrying your weapon. So that's why, so we have fleet vehicles, and sometimes when we have officers that go to training, they prefer to take the fleet vehicle so they don't have to carry their weapon with them. I guess they can be more stealthy that way, and maybe not, if somebody wants to cause trouble with them, see that it's a policeman and give them a hard time. So he uses his personal vehicle and takes the mileage rate. Now, about halfway through the year, because I was making out a bill, and I said, I submitted it with what the IRS standard mileage rate was, and our accounts payable, because she has an eagle eye and make sure that everything is equal, says, well, how come you're submitting this bill higher? This is what our mileage rate is. And I said, that hasn't been updated in years. Like, we should be updating to what it is now, that reflects what the IRS, and again, it's not that we have a policy for this, but in my mind, we should be using the standard rate for mileage. So starting the middle of the year, I believe, or at some point, we started using the rate for, you know, that the IRS says is allowable.
This is the chief for the mileage?
Yes,
He takes a
correct.
mileage rate and he gets a stipend for his...
No. This is the mileage. This is what it is for mileage. There's not there's not an additional, like, here's so much towards a car. This is, you know, this is what the
That wasn't
mileage is.
clear.
You know what I mean? So,
That was not clear at all.
okay. It's
That
just
makes a big
mileage.
difference.
Yeah, it's just mileage.
All right.
So, this would include, I mean, the chief goes to a lot of meetings,
No, that's fine.
you know,
I don't have to go any further with
okay.
that. I
will not.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
There's been some confusion on the cell phones.
Mhm.
All right, so there's a number here, $4,800 for cell phones. My understanding is that the officers do not carry cell phones. They're not issued cell phones.
Correct.
And so why is there a line for cell phones?
So
Who
this
would
is
be
for
paying?
hotspots in the cruisers for their laptops,
Okay.
but they're from US Cellular. This also includes a stipend for the police chief to carry his cell phone, so that we can get a hold of him when he is out of the office. And so, you know, he can text me from scenes to say, you might want to let the council know there's something crazy going on.
So the line below that, communications, it references hotspots. So that's
And
why
I think I have that on the wrong line, and that's my error. So that should have been under cell phone instead of, so telephone line is like our regular, like GWI, what sits on the desk.
Yeah.
So internet is for, so we have to pay the county for this, and I'm assuming it's coming out of this line, but I would have to go into Trio and check. So Spellman, which is the system that I say we, like I do anything in place, the city uses that's tied into the county. So they have to have a VPN for Spellman. There's the cost for Spellman. There's also in one of these lines a cost for what's called Metro, which is a state service. I don't think we have any choice but to subscribe to it. I'm not sure which line that one comes in, if it's under communications or,
So you have a total of $9,800 paying for hotspots in the vehicles in service.
okay, wait, where are we?
Well, I'm combining cell phone and the internet.
But I am wrong. I'm the one that typed that into, I'm the only person who typed anything in, and so I have put that in the wrong line, and I'm sorry if that's confusing. That is not what that line is for. That line the internet line is for, Spellman, the VPN for Spellman,
Oh, that's what you're
and,
saying. Okay.
yes, and Metro.
So cross out
Yes, and that is my fault, because
All right.
I have typed that in
No
incorrectly.
problem.
Put that up by cell phone.
Yes, right,
There you go.
yes.
Like this.
All right. It just was causing a lot of confusion, and it's come up more than once. and it's
Yeah,
like,
no, that's just my error, and if someone would have showed me that before, that I had it on the wrong line, I could have fixed it before now, but
Okay.
no.
Lots of other little things throughout. On that.
So if I had a highlighter, I would highlight that for me to move that before I print it off next time. But that's just my error for putting it on the
I
wrong
have a
line.
highlight. Oh, you got a highlight.
I'm gonna dog ear it, and I've circled it, so.
She's got it.
Yeah,
She's good. And just a question, how many cell phones is that we pay for?
Cell phones?
Well, yeah, is it just the chief's cell
The
phone?
chief's, yes, the chief has a reimbursement.
Cell phone. No, it's the
No,
hotspot.
it's also the hotspots in the vehicles.
Right. So you pay for his cell phone and then every hotspot that's in that vehicle.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what's on that line. And there's the highlight of that. Show where that goes.
So revisiting back to the CEM,
39, which would be on page
60. So this is kind of like a general, I attended the EMA training.
Okay, yeah.
very informative, very awesome training. They did a very good job up there. I don't know if any of the other counselors have looked at that training or not, or attended it. Highly recommend it anyway. You get a really good sense for how it's all set up. Part of our discussions was talking about, the municipality's role in any community management activity, and so I understood that the Caribou Emergency Management, that facility down in the basement of Lions Building is set up to do that. So we have a facility to help manage. But what I also found out is it doesn't seem to be like any capability to staff it. Okay, there's a ham radio operating group that uses the building, and I believe the police station uses it. The police department uses it for training, that space, but it doesn't serve any purpose as an emergency management ops center currently because there's nobody trained, there's no staff, and no apparent plan to do anything with it. So I want to make sure taxpayers are getting good value for the money that we're spending, sponsoring and paying for the CEM. I don't see that it's happening currently. So I'm at a loss of really what to recommend, because there are a lot of things we could probably save a lot of money if we zeroed out this budget. But I don't think that's the answer, because I think what we want to do is we want to build up the CEM to full operational status, which would include updating the ops plan, having a plan to staff it, even if it's with the department heads, and every municipality does it differently apparently. So this is the way we've done it. So that's something I would like to explore a little bit further, and maybe get an explanation from the chief on, what we're paying for, what the value is that we're getting out of having that facility there, and what he does as director for the stipend that we pay him to be the manager or the director of the facility. No specific recommendations. It's just something I stumbled upon. I wanted to bring up.
Isn't it mandatory that we have somebody, a member of the city staff, that is a part of that to serve as the
Emergency management. We have to have a buck stops here person for emergency management in a community. Yeah. Right. Yes.
So we have to have somebody.
Yeah, to your point, but it makes sense, to appoint your police chief or fire chief or whoever had the most experience with, emergency management to be in charge of the emergency operations center. I mean, keep in mind, you can't just remove the basement area and we're not going to maintain it. I mean, it's a city building, so I mean, there's some cost, to keeping that.
So it doesn't make sense it doesn't make sense necessarily to eliminate it. My interest is to bring it up to operational status, so that it's actually providing that value back for the taxpayer money that we're putting into
So
it.
I guess the question is, how do we get the most value from? Is
What's
that
the
what
plan
you're
going
asking?
forward? Because currently we have if we had an emergency today, the director of Heuristic Emergency Management would call the chief and say we have an emergency, and he has no support. He has nobody to call into the facility, to the ops center to do anything, right? Because there's nobody trained as part of. Anyway, it's something I think we can build up, and we should build up. So
I know that the departments have all gone through an exercise where, if there was an emergency type situation, we have to provide them with our contact information. Like if there was an emergency in this building, if it was in danger of collapse or flood, what are the essential things we would need to get out of this building? We went through that several years ago.
And I think our ops plan was last updated 2011, and so it's quite overdue to be updated. And so I think Darren was very interested in having us do that. I also noticed in the budget there's line item for vehicle insurance, and I wasn't aware that the CEM had a vehicle. Are you aware?
So we do have, so in the early days of Thursdays on Sweden Street, they took what they call the feed wagon, which is an old-time vehicle, and that's what they used because at that time Guns and Hoses, it was called, which was fire and police. They cooked hamburgers and interacted with the public. They used the feed wagon to kind of call people to that end of the street, and people knew when they saw that, you know, they could come, they could interact with the staff. Unfortunately, our staffing levels have got to the point that during Thursdays on Sweden Street, we don't have enough staff to actually be working and then also be able to interact with the public. There have been some Thursdays on Sweden Street where the police have had a booth, but we don't have the amount of staff to have Guns and Hoses.
So is that an area that we can eliminate that line? Because
Well, I mean, so your idea would be to get rid of the vehicle then? I mean, if we have something, we have to keep it insured.
I guess
You know, and I don't know.
if it's not being used, then yeah, I would suggest get rid of it.
And our hope would be we'd be back up. We could actually have, you know,
I can see the use for food wagon because I think our agency has like generators and stuff. We have assets. It's just that they're not being used.
well, and we should be happy with having emergencies. I mean, that's one thing.
Well,
But as far as, you know, it would be nice if in the future we were able to have more interaction with the public. People loved that when we had adequate staff to have Guns and Hoses. People still say, oh, how come we don't have Guns and Hoses?
Well,
You know,
this
they
is
sold
about the
t-shirts and stuff.
CEM assets and what we're paying for the CEM as much as anything. So
So this is insured separately, one line.
I don't want to Carl on the spot, but I mean, so what is insured under emergency management besides the feed wagon? Do we know?
$2,200 a year for a trailer.
So, and it could be other things too. I don't know.
All right.
Excuse me, just a moment. But,
Madam Mayor, I appreciate your patience. Those are the top items, and I'll get all the rest of the stuff annotated and out to everybody.
You sure there's nothing else?
No. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anybody else have any last questions about the budget, any part of the budget? Again, now would be the time to make sure that we have those issues brought up so that Penny can look into them, or any questions that we want everyone to be thinking about
I have a few on this, but I'll send this by email.
on the capital. Okay.
I also have some questions, but I'll do the same.
Okay. I mean, either way, we have to.
I mean, they're kind of the smallest things, and I just don't want to waste a bunch of time if they're, I just don't want to waste a bunch of time with those things. But, yeah, there's a lot of things where we haven't been, our departments haven't been spending the money, but they keep asking for the money, and I'm just wondering why we keep approving money that's not being spent year after year after year. And so those are the questions that I have, and why we don't just go ahead and say, hey, when you actually need the money, come back and talk to us, but now let's just take it out. So I found a lot of that in there, so.
Yep. And if you want to put some of those in an email, or if you wanted to bring it, either way, it's fine.
Yeah, whichever just sit here and go through page after page after page of those, but.
And I know some of those, and probably not all of them, were things, you know, that Penny discussed earlier or in our previous meetings about sometimes things are budgeted in case we have more staffing down the road. Or
Yeah, no, totally. And then a lot of, and this is just a random, strange question, almost every department, or many departments had large increases in sewer. Are we expecting a sewer increase for some reason? And I was like, why is everybody asking for so much more? Because I don't see a trend as that.
I can double check that.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, is that something that we're expecting? I guess maybe everybody's expecting that, but I don't know that.
To that point, I mean, I think we're in a amount reserve from 23 to 600,000. So, I mean, what we didn't use previous year, I know it takes a few years to get it back, but there's always a carryover of some sort.
Well, so that we reserve are actually excess revenues, not expenses, correct?
That's not reserve.
Carl, and so what we'll have for lapsed appropriations will be in 2025.
But we're applying 608,000 of that
Right.
to relief for this year.
Correct.
We voted to do that.
Correct. And those were revenues that were over what we anticipated permits that we can work with, which is different than like the lapsed or recreational.
Simple. I don't know how to figure it all out.
I wish I had
Getting my head around it.
bigger skills in this area because this is something that I struggle with because it isn't my forte.
Well, maybe this would be a good time to bring up the idea of realigning our process to maybe bring it back to how we used to do it, where we got started earlier in the year and we had our budget done prior to the beginning of the year that we did the budget. My understanding, we used to do it that way.
Yeah.
Did that work better? Why did we change?
We changed it for a reason, and I think Councillor Terrio has some insight.
Well, I think it was just because there wasn't enough time. At the end of the year, it was grouped in with new councillors, organizational things to get rid of and get done, and I think it was just too soon, so we did it, put it out a little bit, so that we would have more time in a quieter time, to do the budget and stuff like
So
that.
we're not starting our budget. The way it works now, we're not starting our budget for this year until the beginning of this year.
Yeah, and before we went to like October of last year, the year before, we used to go to October, November, I think.
And then set it for the following year. Doesn't that make more sense?
Well, and I think it had to do with the revenue.
It was about city council. So there were councilors that would take office in January 1,
Right.
and the budget was already set. And so they were duly elected, they were sworn in January, but had no say in the budget for that year.
That was the reason?
That was my understanding, that was the big reason. That was the one that stuck with me as an employee, was that, you had, and just like you were saying, like you may have counselors that maybe weren't running, so they did not turn in papers, they weren't running for election, but yet they were still working on a budget that they weren't going to be there to set the mill rate for. You're preaching to people that, either weren't on council at that time or whatever.
And also, we won't have a true picture of the actual,
Right.
Yes.
Didn't have a picture of the,
basically.
yeah.
Right.
Downside.
I was there at the same time, so this had to go to referendum, then we had it to be changed. A couple of the ideas were at the time, December 15th at the time was our expense budget. It pushed us against the wall on Christmas. The new councilors, the idea at the time was the city council should do the expense budget, and there was argument. And then the other argument was now we don't know what the revenue budget
Right.
is until January, so we can look at them together. And we didn't save us any money in the end. It was a proposal. They just gave us a different time frame. To look at them at the same time. If I remember correctly, that's
And the counselor that was going off
yes.
wouldn't have the same kind of interest, I think, in the new counselor coming in, said, well, gee, maybe I should have had some input, on this, and so that was one of the biggest things.
And it gets them at the referendum change is another March 15th.
Yep.
It's all a charter change.
And frankly, whether it takes 3 months from October to December or 3 months from January to March, it's still 3 months. I don't see any problem with the way that we do it now.
And it was very tedious. We had a very tedious system for a while, too, that went on forever and ever, and this is really getting a lot better. We were...
I remember exactly. There's good reason
So the
for it.
feeling from you guys is that this works better than
I think
how we used to.
fair. I think it's a fair thing to do, is to let the new counselors be in on it, rather than do it in, October, September, October, November, something there, when you've got old ones going out and the new ones coming in. And at least new counselors get, an idea and a little bit of training, for the first year out, because when I got on, I didn't know anything really that much because it had been taken care of a lot of it because they were doing it the old way. And so this way, at least you get a head start with understanding the budget and stuff.
Interesting.
So it's
And again, I think for me, having real numbers to work with instead of guessing what we're going to spend the last 3 months of the year makes more sense to me.
And along with revenue. You get the revenue, so you can compare it.
Right.
we weren't allowed it for a while years ago to even know what the revenue was going to be. We had to work blind, without knowing the revenue, and you kind of guessed and stuff like that. And this makes it a lot better too.
I know, I've struggled. I've got 1 year under my belt. This is my second year, and I still don't feel like I understand it. And I don't know how long it's going to take me. Carl's really helped a lot in explaining. We sat down several times, and Penny as well. But it's not a simple process, that's for sure.
Councilor Lovell, I know you had some questions. I know Penny had stepped out. Do you want to address some of those?
I have a question on page 63. I just want to know if this is an error or if this is actually was an expense and it was just kind of an anomaly. But on 01901, miscellaneous expense line, when we look at the actual for last year, but what they're asking for, what it has been historically, they're asking 1,500, but 26,000 last year. Is that just is that a typo?
I don't know.
That seems like really off.
That's
So,
a good catch.
Yeah, that is a good catch, because I don't catch that.
15. Well,
yeah, that seems like a really off.
Second line now.
Okay, yeah.
I will find that out and email you. Is that,
I'm pretty sure it was just
a dog ear, that one. Okay.
not right, but. And then I have a question too. There was a department, not the tracks from my notes, but there's a department that asked, in my opinion, too little. And for some
Yeah, that was when I was in the restroom. I said I should really ask them if there was anything that they should wanted to increase.
yeah, here it is. Can we say something about that?
When you make the decision.
Yeah, so, and, I'm gonna look back and see which one it was. So,
And 39, you said?
that's on page 40.
40?
Yeah. So it's the housing, what is it, housing? Yeah, so I'm just looking at their software line, I think, as, I think maybe they asked to, I think that might be the line I was looking at, or maybe it was the line above it. Yeah, it is the line above it too. This office supplies, they always go above that amount every single year, and they ask for less, and they've never gone. So I just thought, well, maybe they should just increase it.
Lisa's here, she can tell you about that. She's switched to a different software.
Oh, no, it wasn't the software, it was the office supplies line. Yeah, I was like, you probably should increase that, because you've never hit 1750.
Last year, you just asked for 1750.
Yeah, and then it was 2106 before, and 3461, so I thought, maybe we should ask for a little bit more on that. And then also, and the line below too, and if your software is cheaper, that's great. I mean, I don't know if you-
software will be hopefully cheaper this year.
That's good.
Office supplies, I don't remember, I have to go back and find my notes.
Yeah, so I mean, if you don't need that, that's great too. I mean, I'm not.
What do you use that paper? You don't seem to like have all your files and stuff that you've had before. Yeah, they've gone to more digital things. Yeah.
Because then I'm just looking at that and it says, because there's a paper line too. But under the office supplies, it seems like it's always a little bit higher than that, or a little bit. So, anyways,
Was there any other departments that people felt that should have increases in them? Don't be shy now.
Well, I will say this about an Islander, as you all noticed, I'm sure, that's a pretty significant increase from last year. But I fully support it. I'm not saying that they should ask for more, but they have absolutely transformed the building and the operations of that place and brought it back to life, and a huge success story. So keep going.
ambulance department on page 47. I think the chief might have actually made a statement about this, but I can't recall off the top of my head. On the heating fuel line, it's substantially more on the request than what he's been spending historically, double what the actual expense was last year. Is there a reason that anybody?
No, but I have asked him to look at that.
Yeah,
So
that'd be
I'm
great.
expecting, Wednesday when we meet, that I'll have some answers.
Thank you.
Because you mentioned that.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything further that anyone would like to discuss regarding the budget?
Are you doing that same with diesel?
Yes, I asked him about diesel,
Thank you.
heating fuel, and I believe there was one other one I asked him about.
For dollar transfers, these should be done, correct?
Transfer, yes, diesel should be down because of
Diesel.
considerable, right,
Diesel.
yes.
Price.
Yeah.
Good clarification.
And then when you were out, I just had mentioned that there was just a lot of lines throughout the budget and a lot of different departments that have had zero spending over the last 3 years, but they keep asking, and I just wonder if we should just take those lines out, and if at some point they actually need to have those expenses and they see fit, then they can come back and ask again, but just sometimes money, sometimes it's important, but sometimes it's not.
I mean, sometimes we don't know, in general government, we have for a GASB audit, and we don't know when we're going to be asked to do that.
That was the audit one, and there was one that was.
It's a zero.
Yeah.
But, maybe that's something we could look at setting up a reserve line and just have, the money in reserve instead of, having it as an expense line. We can look at that. Something like the canine officer. So our officers have been doing canine duty, and so we have in there, if we need services of a canine officer, a lot of years it's zero because our officers do the work with dogs that are at large. But but we do need to keep it in there in case we do need that service. Or I almost think we're supposed to have, funding for canine services in there. I can ask about it, but I seem to remember from years past that it's something that we have to keep in there in case we do need it. Sometimes, we have lines in there and we think it's going to be something that we need and we don't. And I think that one of the things about the department heads that you have leading your departments is they don't spend money that they don't need to spend. And they take pride in the fact that they are trying to be very good stewards of the city's resources. And I think you can see that when at the end of the year, we're not in the red because they are very, they will think twice before they spend money. They'll do without if that's what they feel they need to do to come in, under budget in their budget lines, and they'll think twice before they spend that.
We pass the expense budget. Rarely, if ever it happens, we can reduce the expense budget at any time throughout the year. We can't increase it.
Yeah, you can't increase
We can't increase it, so we can decrease it at any time as a council.
Sees fit.
Sees fit. That doesn't typically happen, but so if you've got a little bit of fluff, you don't have to have a whole bunch. You just got a little buffer there. Easy to work with.
And that sometimes happens though when we go to set the tax rate. So by that time, you've had almost 6 months of the year, and so if you can see that there's savings and you might need to tweak something to be able to come in at a flat mill rate or not have as big of an increase, then the council can say, okay, to achieve this, we're going to need to cut this much from this account, because at the end, we can't put in a tax rate that's going to kick back and say, no, you can't use that tax rate because you're not raising enough money because your budget is this amount. We would have to change those budget lines in there.
So you're not setting the mill rate right away based on this?
No.
That was my concern. Actually. So okay, so got you. So, okay.
As long as everything,
yeah.
So, before we can set the actual tax rate, so first of all, April 1st is tax situs day, so we can only tax what the situation of property is on April 1st. So if a house burns on March 31st, then it's not taxable. If it burns April 2nd, it's taxable because April 1 is the day. So because April 1 is the day, it takes us in the assessing office a while to catch up on everything. Make sure that we've driven by property, that we followed up on building permits, we've changed all the deeds, which sometimes will change exemptions and that kind of thing. We have to work on the different exemptions. So you're doing all that valuation. Meanwhile, we're also working on personal property tax because, again, it's whatever is in service April 1. So that's why we give businesses until April 15th. And actually, it ends up being May, and sometimes we end up chasing people into potato fields in June to get them to sign their declarations. And I am not even exaggerating. Because, no, it does happen. Because with our businesses, if they've signed up for a business equipment tax exemption in years prior, and we know that they're still eligible for the following year, we don't want them, because they didn't file, and that's a state requirement, for them to lose that exemption. We will chase them down and say, sign for it. And we have a clipboard and a pen, and, we get them to sign it because that's what we have to do to be in compliance with state law. So it takes us a while to get that stuff all tracked down. So in the meantime, we have to wait until the school budget passes. So one of the elections that Daniela has to run this year is in June, and that will be for, the school budget will be voted on. The validation vote is in June. So they will have a budget meeting. It will most likely be at the Performing Arts Center. The different warrant articles will be introduced. The people that are in attendance will vote. What is voted will then carry over to the budget validation vote, and we'll go and see Danielle and her ballot clerks, our election workers, and vote on that. At the same time, we're going to be getting 12 months of budget from the county also. We also are going to hope that there's nothing that gets passed in Augusta that messes with anything I just said. Because that sometimes happens too. There's been times we can't commit taxes because the state is still wrangling over an exemption or a reimbursement or the state budget or something like that. So we can't commit because of that. But if everything falls in line the way it should be, then at that point, once we have all the known quantities, we know what our valuation is. Because we have our valuation and we know what we have to spend. And what we're spending is the municipal budget minus our revenues, it's our county budget, and it's our school budget. So those three things are making up what we have to appropriate. We have our valuation. So then when we divide one into the other, okay, well, we have to raise, the mill rate has to be this minimum number to raise the amount with our property fiscal capacity, our valuation, to be able to raise the proper funds, to cash the check that you've written, in March, and the one that the county is writing and the one that the school is writing. So, all those things have to happen before we can actually set a mill rate. So what happens sometimes is after we've had 6 months into the budget, we can have a better sense of, okay, well, these positions are still unfilled. Maybe we can save a little bit there. Okay, we got the ARPA grant, so we're going to save money with this. Different things can happen over that time that can change some numbers, and they might be able to change them just enough that you could adopt a different mill rate than you would have if you were trying to, like you say, adopt it today.
Gotcha. That makes a lot more sense.
We'll wait on that. We have
Yeah, again, there are things that happen, and
these bridges, sometimes
it's better to be done right than done fast.
Yeah,
And it's an impossible schedule anyway.
Yeah, it isn't the assessing office. I can tell you, from an assessor's perspective, like I have told my family, don't have any major life event in April, May, June, because I will miss it. It doesn't matter if you are dying, if somebody dies, or somebody's sick. We can't leave town around. And the other thing is, like, we don't want to be involved in risky behavior, because if we die, like, nobody's going to know where we left off and trying to figure out valuation, you know, and that's why, you know, we're always very kind to those people. It's just like our finance department when it comes to trying to finish up the, you know, the end of the year, because it's not just the end of the year, it's the end of the month and the end of the quarter and the end of the year. And, you know, it's like, here, have a latte, because, you know, we want to make sure that they don't, like, strike out on us at the 11th hour, because we'll never know how to finish it.
Can I sneak in a couple more questions? The dog constable
Yeah.
and the support to animal services or shelter, what are those two things? Why do we need them?
So I talked about actually the dog constable. So,
Is that an animal control?
animal control
It's a
officer.
requirement?
I believe so. Danielle, do you know about that? Yeah, because Danielle has to license dogs. So,
So animal control,
it is a thing. Yeah,
But
we
we
have,
do have
we do, but our police department, again, because the departments that we have are always really trying to do the best they can with the resources they have, they try to take care of those issues themselves. But we do have an on-call dog constable, so we have to call him.
There's lots of different things, like, so if somebody has, if they're a breeder or have a kennel license, he actually has to go inspect them every year. So he does a lot
it just works on an hourly basis or contract basis? Or
Yeah, I think it's hourly.
I call him and tell him to leave him.
contract?
Yeah.
What about the animal service?
The Humane Society, we get a bill from them, and I believe we just have to pay it. I think it's one of those things. It's like a per capita thing.
Kind of like how he takes pets to them.
Right.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay, thank you.
yeah. And it's dependent on population, because it changes a little bit every year. All right. That's why you'll hear, like, our local halfway home pet rescue, they take cats, because there's not the same mechanism in place for cats as there is dogs. You know, you don't have to license cats. There's not this fee that we have to pay to a humane shelter for cats. It's every cat for themselves out there.
Insert comment here.
Any further questions on the budget materials? Okay, so I think you probably have plenty of homework on this for next week. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. This was a good conversation. Item 11 on the agenda, old business, we don't have any of that. Item number 12 is reports and discussion by mayor and council members. And let's start with our distance counselor this evening. Counselor Morrow, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Yes, I do, but something I'd really like to emphasize to people, the recent closure of Prescott Rehab and Nursing, can have a very profound effect on long-term health care, here in the county. I don't know if you follow the news or not, but the Veterans Administration, the Veterans Services, they're asking legislation right now for an additional $3 million a year to, maintain the veterans facilities. And I think it's something that, deserves a very close eye on. There hasn't been any word of the appropriations committee has come out to, grant that to them or not. It's very nice to see that Caribou Rehab Nursing, is holding on. Has a very strong footprint in our community. Closing of any of these facilities, maybe not so much the veterans home, but represents a significant loss of tax dollars, and employment numbers for our community. Caribou, Prescott, pay a lot of taxes and employ a lot of people. So that's something that's very worth paying attention to, and watching, so that's my thought.
Thank you. Counselor Bagley?
Nope, thank you.
Counselor Lovewell? I have nothing. Yes. Counselor Smith?
Hey, John, I'm taking your glasses. I'm gonna do sets. All I got to say on that.
Wow. It's getting rough in here.
Go on, what it has.
I have nothing.
Counselor Kelly? No, I don't. All right. exciting. Reminder that March 15th is the deadline for facade improvement
Yes,
grant.
yes, right, reminder.
Just throw that out there. So our next meeting will be March 18th, where we will have our public hearing on the budget. And then we also have a meeting on March 25th. All right. We do not have anything under executive sessions this evening. So what are the wishes of the council?
So motion for adjournment?
Councilor Terry will beat you to that.
I did.
Go ahead and second. You can second it though.
You don't want to say more?
First and seconded discussion. Bagley? Aye. Kelly? Aye. Lowell? Aye. Morrow?
Aye.
Smith?
Yes.
Terrio? Aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
I am taking glasses though.